Do you ever feel like it's too late? Like you're past your prime, or you didn't start soon enough to build massive success you dreamed of in your career? Maybe you're worried that if you do become successful, you'd then be so busy that you'd lose your freedom and your flexibility. Well, you're going to love this episode. I'm interviewing Leslie Kuster, founder of the clothing line Back to Bali and an entrepreneur with multiple seven-figure earnings. But she didn't start out that way. And she's going to share what shifted in her 50s that led to this massive success. Whether you're building a business, pursuing a career path, or desire to live a rich and purposeful life, Leslie's journey inspires and teaches us what to do next. Welcome to this episode of She Made It. I am here with my guest, Leslie Kuster. And Leslie, first of all, welcome. I'd love to know, where in the world are you calling in from today?
Oh, Elle, I'm so happy to be here. And that's a really good question because I'm calling in from Zurich, Switzerland.
Wow. So what time is it there? I mean, it's about 11 o'clock Eastern time. So what is your time?
So it's 5 o'clock, 5 in the afternoon right now in Switzerland. That's okay. What time it is.
And what season is it? I sound probably
it's
ignorant.
Summer,
but
it's a crazy summer. I think it's a crazy summer for everybody. And where the U.S. has gotten like an incredible amount of heat and fires and everything, all it's done here is rain, basically. So it is summer, but it's super cool. And like you could wear like a sweatshirt at night. It's so cool here. But we are in the same seasons. It's just like a fall, winter, spring, summer. A little bit similar to the East Coast weather.
Yeah. And I know there's a really interesting story that ends you up in Switzerland. And we've heard a little bit about Leslie in the beginning of the episode, but, Leslie, you're the CEO and founder of Back from Bali, but now you're expanding into something even bigger, even more, supporting women entrepreneurs. I think you have this knack for honing into like money mindset issues and sort of owning your worth. And what is so fascinating to me and why I really wanted to have you on the show is because, first of all, you have this like it's not too late attitude and this yearning for more and this like, yes, I can keep growing. So just to kind of catch us up to speed, because I do want to focus on sort of what you're doing now, but can you kind of give us the quick story? Because I know even Back to Bali is a fascinating business idea, business concept. You and I have something in common. You studied theater in your undergrad. Of course, my background is in acting, and then you have a master's in clinical social work. And so all of that leading up to what you're doing, sort of where you are expanding into now is just, I'd love to be able to share a little bit of that background story as we get started.
Yeah, wonderful. I would love to. I have a long entrepreneurial story. So I've been an entrepreneur for a really long time, like 30 years. And I became an entrepreneur simply because I didn't want to get a job. So I was that person who was working in New York City and, going up on the elevators and going to jobs that I didn't really love very much at all. And like imagining what it must feel like not to be there. But I was there. And then something happened to me in my life where my house got robbed in New York City. Insurance money came in because it was robbed. And I made a decision that I was just going to take off and go traveling. And I ended up going traveling to Indonesia because something just pulled me there. I remember seeing this like group of islands on the map and thinking, I want to go there. And I did. And I went there and had an amazing experience and traveled. But I needed to come back at some point to New York City, which is where I was living at the time, and get a job. And I just didn't want to get a job. And that was my motivation for starting a business. So I had this literally like a light bulb moment I remember sitting on my bed in New York City with like the New York Times open in front of me, because that's back then how you looked for jobs, is in the newspaper. And there was just nothing there. And I just remembered this beautiful, colorful clothing I had seen in Bali, Indonesia, when I was traveling. And I just thought, I wonder if I went back to Bali, bought clothing, brought it back to New York, can I sell it? And that is how and why I launched an importing business. But it was tiny at the time, as you can imagine. I was just selling at street fairs. And eventually I went into wholesaling and selling to bigger stores. But it was never a very big business. And I did this for many years, keeping it kind of at an okay mark. So, and this is really the story that I really want to focus with you today, is that there's so many women entrepreneurs that have businesses, but they just do kind of okay. And recently I heard this statistic that 90% of women entrepreneurs never make it past $100,000 in annual revenue, nevertheless money in their own pocket. And only 3% have made a 7-figure business. So something is really off there. So I was that entrepreneur making under 100,000 for like a really long time. I mean, seriously long time. We're talking like 15 years of it. And that is when the second, sort of like the second lightning bolt, the first lightning bolt is I don't want to work in a company. And then the second lightning bolt happened not so long ago. It was around about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. And I just decided enough is enough. And I'm simply not waking up on my next birthday. And at the time I was about 53 years old. And I just said, there's no way I'm waking up on my next birthday not making $100,000 this year. Like, no way. And such began where I am now as an entrepreneur, which is very different from where I had been for so many years.
Yeah. So first of all, I love to sort of connect dots. Like, I love how you it wasn't that you were thinking and analyzing and strategizing. It all came from this like gut reaction to needing change or clarity around what isn't working and knowing you want to do something different. But then, okay, so you say, enough is enough. I'm not going to get to my next birthday without making $100,000. Okay, so then what? What happened? How did that happen?
That moment was really intense. It was like I was sitting in our little apartment where we were living at that time, and I really I felt like a failure. That's how I felt, even though I wasn't a failure. I felt like a failure. In fact, I even had 2 businesses, and between both businesses, I still was not doing over 100,000. But I was far from a failure if anybody saw me from the outside. But it's how I felt. And this moment got me to be really honest with myself about what it is that I really, really wanted. Up until this time, one of my main values in my life has been and still is freedom. And so I had a lot of freedom all these years that I had my business when it wasn't doing like as well. And I felt that freedom was the most important thing. And I had a belief system that I have since learned is really a money mindset issue, and which went like this, that if I decided to build my business and if I decided to be successful and if I decided to make money, I was going to lose my freedom. And I think I share that with a lot of women.
I can so relate to that. I can so relate. Oh yeah, because I'm very similar in that I had a job for 2 weeks and I realized I'm not made for a job. And I was always in theater, so that didn't feel like a job because it was contract, and it did still feel like there was freedom because, I had individual expression. And then in building businesses, my kids came in, so I took a pause on theater and started building business. But there was always a tentative commitment for fear of being successful and losing my freedom. So I so relate to that. So, okay, so then you have this desire for finance and abundance, and you have this desire for freedom, and then feeling like they're in conflict. So how did you overcome that?
How do you overcome that one? Okay. The first thing is you have to get honest with what you want. And I realized that I had been lying to myself for years and years and years. And I've been lying to myself saying, the money is not that important because I'm a spiritual person, or, and I want to do this, and I want to go on the summers to a retreat that I go to every year, so I kept I wasn't really, really honest with what it is that I really, really wanted. And when I was sitting in that chair in that apartment that I said, when it really became clear to me I was going to change things, I had to, or I wanted to desperately, I also realized that what I really wanted was money. And I had never had the honesty inside of me to admit it. Because first of all, it sounded materialistic, it sounded greedy, it didn't sound very feminine. It just was sort of against my values. But in saying it and really going, this is really what I want. I want to build a business. This is what I want to do. It just freed something up. And I almost felt like the universe, if there were angels in the room, they would have been like, hallelujah, finally. I literally got chills up and down my spine when I made this decision. It was almost like I took off a covering of something that had been keeping me small, because I thought that smallness was big, meaning freedom or spirituality or whatever. And once getting really honest with myself, something just really opened up. So you've asked now, well, so what do you do next when this happens? Well, what then starts to happen is you start to think, okay, so how do I do this? Because my business, just so all the listeners know, is I manufacture clothing in Bali, Indonesia. The business is called Back from Bali, as you mentioned. And I import the clothing from Bali, Indonesia into the United States. And I sell it on my website, and I sell it on Amazon.com. Okay, so that is really, the nature of the business. And I had started to sell on Amazon at that time, and at the time of this awakening, I was doing about 50,000 a year on Amazon in sales, which at the time I thought was pretty damn good, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, especially because it was new then.
It was.
People weren't. They didn't think of, entrepreneurs didn't think of it. They thought of it as this behemoth platform for authors, for books. And it was slowly becoming more products, and now it's all over. Now it's everything. But
now it's everything. Now it's the store where everybody buys everything from.
Right.
All the time. So, but I was on Amazon, but I knew enough to know I didn't really know very much. And just, the wheels were turning. And all of a sudden I heard about some conference in Seattle, which is where Amazon is. And I thought, why don't I go to this conference? So I go to the conference, and I'm just in awe of everybody there. I mean, I'm hearing things like I do 40,000 a month, on Amazon. And I sold my Amazon business for, 7 figures. And I'm hearing all these things that I never even knew existed. And there was a speaker there, a keynote speaker, a woman. Her name is Lisa Satora. And she just blew me away with what she knew. And I really felt like on a scale of 1 to 10, I was like a 1 in terms of my online e-commerce knowledge. And I went up to her and I said, do you have a card? And she gave me her card. And I had a great time at the conference. I had all kinds of ideas. I went back home and I did what many people do, which is I forgot about it all. Okay. Yep. Right. And didn't take much more action, and things kind of were the same. And one day my husband, Heinz, said to me, remember that lady you met at that Amazon conference? Why don't you give her a call? And I did. And I still work with her. So what do you do to make this change? Well, definitely, I have a book coming out, and one of the keys to success is definitely getting help and getting mentoring or consulting, because we truly have no idea what we don't know. How could we know what we don't know when we really don't know? Yeah. So that was the beginning of how I did it, is I started to learn from her what it is that you need to do to have a more successful business.
Mm-hmm. And so you built that, you worked in that business, and then did you hit the $100,000 mark by your next birthday?
I hit the $100,000 mark that year. It went, my sales have gone from that 100,000, then they jumped the following year to 250,000, the following year to 400,000, the following year to 700. Following year, I hit the million, and I'm now in the multiple seven figures.
Oh my gosh. And you're still free, right? You still have freedom.
And that just gave me yes, that just gave me chills what you said. And that is the point. I'm more free now.
Yeah. And you're still spiritual, even though you have money, right?
And I'm still spiritual. Yeah, exactly. And you realize that all of these thoughts that it will hold me back, that I won't be feminine, that I won't have time for my friends, I won't have time for, my children or whatever, are just mindset, negative thoughts inside our heads that we think are true and aren't, but are actually holding us back from our own success. And truthfully, being successful is a lot easier in life than not being successful. Life becomes, in my experience, life has become much easier than it had been before.
Wow, I think that is gigantic, because I'm just going to speak from my perspective that it's so simple to manage $100,000, or even, I'll even say 250, 300, as I'm growing my business, that's easy. I don't need a massive team. And the more I grow, the more I think, the infrastructure, the contractors, the employees, and that feels very heavy to me. So I'd love to hear how as you grew, and as the business probably required more of you, maybe not, how did you continue to manage that mindset?
Yeah. And that's a really good question. Okay. Two things. One thing I have to say is that in order to get the business to where it is now, or at least it's certainly to get it to the first million, it took a lot of work. So getting business to a successful number takes work, and everybody needs to know it takes a lot of work to get there. However, I've always been committed to my what I call empty time. Always. It's always been one of the most important things in my life, is that I have and continue to have a spiritual connection. And in order to have a spiritual connection, you have to make time for it. And I have been going to a spiritual retreat in New Mexico for 30 years. In fact, it's where I met my Swiss husband, which is why I'm in Switzerland right now. And so even while I was building the business and working really hard, I always made time to go to this retreat, and even other weeks during the year to take this empty time and downtime. Yeah. And one of the things I like to say is, if you want to be successful in business, there is times when you have to stop doing business. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a combination of that, all right, that I'm almost so passionate, and I'm so protective over my free time. I put it first all the time. And I think just having that intention, again, everything goes down to how you think. If you think your business is going to take you 70 or 80 hours a week to bring it to a certain level, well, it will. And if you think there might be another way, I believe it will too, So I think, again, it's how you think. The other thing I want to say with it is that you have a service-based business, right? And my business is a product-based business. And there is differences in terms of how much, and I have a product-based e-commerce business. So I think the nature of my business takes less people to run than a super high-level service-based business.
Yeah. So pick your business carefully.
Business carefully.
Yeah, and I have, yes, and I would say I am always sort of moodling over how to create a residual income or a product or something that can be working when I'm not working. So that's very, very helpful insight. I do want to go back to, though, something you call empty time, because I'm guessing that's in your book as well, which will kind of give people the title and kind of where they can find that at the end. But so from what I'm hearing, and I want you to share more, empty time is basically that, and I think you said the first priority to set for the recharging, refreshing, resting. How does that show up tangibly for you? Do you look at your calendar and you pick when that is? Do you only work so many hours? How do you make sure that happens?
Yeah, well, pre-COVID, I would literally went to this retreat center in New Mexico for 6 weeks in the summertime. Okay, but since COVID, we have had to adjust a few things, and so I literally schedule time in the morning. I basically start from 7:30 in the morning to 10:30 in the morning is my time, and I do meditation. So meditation to me, and I know many listeners know how to meditate, but I'll just share with you what has really worked for me, because sometimes just like trying to stop the mind or whatever is not always easy. But what I have found is that if you can feel something you love, like a person, a thing, a flower, an animal, no matter what it is, their love has a feeling. It really does. It's like you kind of like, it feels good, right? When you love something.
Yeah.
And if you could feel that feeling in your heart when you sit down to meditate, then to me, that's meditation. Just getting into this place of connecting with love, because love is everything and it's timeless, and then it connects us to something bigger than we are. So yes, taking empty time means taking time to connect to God, to nature, to whatever you want to call it. And it not only is it important because it's relaxing and it keeps us sane and connected, it's not only for that reason, but it's really important to build a business that serves you instead of you having a business that you serve it. And one way to avoid that is that your business aligns with who you are and your deeper yearning. And when you have empty time, meditation time, you connect with that yearning. Like you connect with what it is you really want on a deep level. And once you connect with that, then you could make decisions and choices about things like your business from a much more honest, real place.
Yeah. So I work with women often that are stuck. They're unclear. They may meditate, they may not, they may pray, they may journal, and sometimes getting connected to that is very challenging. even if they're giving the space for it. So would you say that that's a practice? Would you say, like, how do you know what the yearning is, or how to, there's so much that I think as a woman in particular, we've been programmed to think, and the shoulds and the traditional constructs and the ways we were raised. And so I think women, again, from my experience speaking with them, coaching with them, they're just confused about what that yearning is. And you also made a comment about, because I read a little bit about you, where you say, if you love something and you're doing your passion, but you're not making money, then that's a hobby. But if a woman wants it to be a business, and so help with that, I guess, what would you say to the woman who can't hear or feel or discern that yearning?
I would say time's to change your life, because you're going to die. And I'm sorry, but that's really what I would say. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. This is where we're all headed. And I say it with that much directness and passion because I've had a lot of deaths in my life. That started at the age of 17. And I had other tragedies happening to my life. And so I really know the reality of death. So when you are so detached from yourself that you can't even feel it anymore, and it's not because you did something wrong, or you're a bad person, or you're thick and you're stupid. It's not any of those things. This is so common, as you said. This is in fact how many people are. But it's a signal. It's a signal that something must change, because your life is so unbelievably precious. And if you feel that detached from yourself, then it is so time to do something about it. One of the things that I recommend doing is journaling, and is writing. And just getting, like a cheap, pretty book, you can get them online, at Amazon, where they cost $6 or $7 or whatever. And just like write down all your feelings, write down your wishes, write down what you want, write down, I don't know what I want. If you don't know what you want, write it, I don't know what I want, for 20 pages. Just start getting it out. This is a signal to you that it's time to do something.
Yeah. And so then the woman that I speak with will often, and I'm speaking like this, generic sort of woman. Okay, so I know what I love, but I'm afraid, or I don't, all the resistances come in, the negative, the self-sabotage, the second guessing. How does that woman then push through? Okay, I know I love this, but I'm not moving.
Yeah. I think we have to all be honest and realize that everybody thinks these things, like everyone. I don't even care who you are, or what level you're at, or how successful you are or appear to be. I mean, we are humans, and we will always be dealing with our negative self-talk. And I, unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to go away, right? And so I think that's important to understand, that it's okay if you have these feelings and these thoughts, and that your job is not to get rid of all of them, because truthfully, you're not, to take the pressure off of you, that you won't feel scared, or you won't feel nervous, or you feel you won't be able to do it. It's okay if you feel all those things, but also try to do it. Also try to do it at the same time. And why do you want to do it? It then goes back to, you all hear that, you have to have a why. And I do really believe that. We have to be so uncomfortable with where we are at in order to make any changes. Don't you? Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Sure. And for sure. And I often say, do the next thing. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing. It doesn't have to be, we get confused with the end, like where we want to go has, and you said there's a lot of work before I got to the place where my business was at a multiple seven figure. So what's the next thing? And sometimes the next thing doesn't have quite as much risk, or, it's the incremental baby steps. We've always heard, the law of momentum, a body in motion stays in motion. Well, if we can get the motion going upward rather than downward, what's that next baby step? So, yeah, well, I have a question. And I don't know if it's connected to this at all, but you speak of something called the Princess Tower syndrome.
Yeah, I do.
Tell us about that. What is that?
Okay, so I realized that I was in the Princess Tower, and I had been living in the Princess Tower until my early 50s, really. And I noticed that I have a lot of friends and family in the Princess Tower. And to me, what that means is that you were kind of like a princess, right, in the tower. And we all have that image when I say that. And you were waiting to be saved, or you already have Prince Charming taking care of you, or some other figure. Either have a father taking care of you, a boyfriend taking care of you, a husband, a partner, a spouse, whoever it is, and that you don't really have to work that hard because you're kind of okay and comfortable. Right? That's the Princess Tower syndrome.
Yeah, it's like when things are easy, it's hard to move because you just said it's the getting uncomfortable that forces, sometimes requires real change. But if it feels easy, which sometimes I'm thinking that's the Princess Tower, like, I'm kind of taken care of.
I don't need, my husband pays most of the bills. What do I have to work hard for? Yeah. Money is coming in. What do I have to work? I inherited money. What do I have to work so hard? I don't need much, I don't need much so I'm okay. Yeah. All of these things. I grew up like that. I grew up in a family that the value of men was that they made money. Okay. And that was a valuable man or valuable husband, and a valuable woman in my family. Obviously you need to be nice and good and, all these, I'm not saying it wasn't that, but a valuable woman was to marry a man who made money. Okay. that was sort of what I grew up in. And so it wasn't really valuable as a woman in my family to be financially successful by herself. It was valuable that she married a man who was financially successful. So I had, even though I've kind of lived out of the box a lot of my life and didn't really follow a very traditional path at all, I still had these ideas that my husband, that Heinz, should be the one who makes most of the money. And why do I have to? Sure, I could pay for some nice vacations and whatever, but why is it up to me? That he's the one who should it. And this was my belief system without thinking of it, I have to say. I can't tell you back then that I would actually been able to articulate it. But somewhere deep inside, this is how I felt. And then I felt, and I don't want to work that hard. I want to be able to have lunch with my girlfriends. I want to be able to wake up when I want. I want to be able to, whatever it is that I would go to my yoga class. I want this, this is so.
Right. So, yeah. How did you reconcile that? So I love how you said you didn't even realize you had that sort of paradigm. And then when you came to realize that, how did that shift for you?
Yeah. And when I was sitting in that little room and I really had that big awakening, I have to call it, I realized I had been in the Princess Tower and I had been there though. And this is the important part because and this is why most women are in it, because they don't think they can get out of it. And either that they couldn't really financially support themselves because of whatever reason they believe, all right, or that they literally don't think they have the capacity to do it, And I realized, that I had been in it for so long from so many of these negative self-beliefs about myself. And also the negative self-beliefs, as we talked about earlier, of what making money looked like as a woman too, that it didn't look that good. It was, it was greedy. It was more masculine or whatever. So when that honesty, we're kind of dialing back to when I got honest and I was like, you know what? I want my dream apartment. I want to buy our dream apartment. I don't want to wait for my husband to buy me the dream apartment. Like, this is over. And I can't tell you why that came so strong to me, but it did. It just welled up inside of me.
Yeah, but what's interesting is you sort of talked about two parts of that. One, I don't really believe I can do that, but then also I like not having that pressure. I like going to yoga and lunch with my girlfriends, and so how did those meet? Like, you wanted the dream apartment and you're like, I'm ready. Did you have to give up yoga and lunch with your girlfriends? What do we sacrifice? Or do we?
Okay, now that I'm on the other side of this whole story, what it really has to do with is self-empowerment. This is what it has to do with, is self-empowerment and independence. And this is what every woman needs to step into. The money is a neutral thing that enables women to step into their empowerment and their independence. And when one steps into their empowerment, you step into your awesomeness. You step into possibilities, to abundance, to magical things in life. It's like you elevate your life to something better and more special. Right. So I think I had some kind of inkling that if I did this and stepped over my fears that I couldn't do it, that it would take away my yoga class or whatever these things, I had some kind of inkling that there was some yearning inside of me that I knew I could be doing better than I was doing. And that's what, for me, it boiled down to. I knew I could do better than I was doing at the moment. I knew there was more in me. I knew I didn't want to leave this planet exactly where I was then.
Yeah. So that brings up another point, because you mentioned that it was in your early 50s.
Yeah.
And so often I hear the mantra, it's too late, I'm too old, or I'll speak for myself. I was an actress, and then I built my husband's personal brand, and I feel like, why I'm starting all over again. Like, there's a little bit of a frustration of like, is this really possible? And I hear women speak about that, especially they're in that next stage, that kids have left home. Like, what do I do now? And why is it too late?
Yeah. Such a great point. And that's what I hope to help women understand. I mean, I'm specifically wanting to help women 45 years to 65 or older, because first of all, women of this age often do have businesses that are not doing so great, okay, or they're doing whatever under the 6-figure mark, and we need to realize that it is so not too late at all. And this again is a mind shift that has to happen. We have to recognize that the only time it's too late is when you are on your deathbed. And before that, it is never too late. It is a little easier for me to talk about this in that way because of my parents, all right? Because I have 2 parents that have lived the never too late world. My mother, who is now 85 years old, right before you weren't being able to travel, was continuing to travel with a backpack and live only in hostels all over the world. Okay.
I love that.
she's amazing. And if you look at her, she's like incredible how young she looks and acts and is coming to, she's also written a book and she's come into her own. My father also really, it wasn't into his 70s or 80s that he became this famous photographer actually, and did an incredible project on Albanians saving Jews in World War II. And he has shows all around the world that continue to this day. So I have parents, entrepreneurial parents, who modeled for me that it really is never too late. And the truth is, we come into our best work the older we go. One of my favorite books is Think and Napoleon Hill, right?
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Thank you so much. And, he talks about that even in that book a long time ago, that statistically, the best work that all human beings have ever done is actually after their 50s. Mm-hmm. So this is actually where the real work gets to be done. And before that, you're just marching towards it. So I think it's an exciting time, no matter what age you are, as long as you're healthy. That's the only thing we need.
Yeah, I always tell people that your body is your $1 billion investment. Because if you don't have your health, what do you have, right? Yeah. So as we start to wrap up here, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you talked about Back to Bali. We can find that on Amazon, right? Is it just Back to Bali on Amazon? Mm-hmm. Back from Bali, yeah.
Backfrombali.com and on Amazon, Back from Bali, exactly. I brought the business to a healthy place. And what happened to me a few years ago was that I got to a point where I felt like I had gotten all this information on e-commerce, on building businesses, on mindset, on all the steps you need to build a business. And it was all stuck inside of me and it wasn't being shared with anybody. And part of having an e-commerce business is you're very much behind your computer and it's just you and the computer. And a few years ago, I think maybe back 3 years ago or 4 years ago, something like that, I again started getting that yearning, which is why I say to women, when you get a feeling, a dissatisfaction, this is the best thing that could possibly happen to you, because it's a little bell going ding, 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 ding. And I got that feeling like, is this going to be it? That I'm going to, I have this business and then that's it, And I really wanted to start to help other women entrepreneurs and share what I've learned. And so I still have my business and I'm able to run my business, I'm happy to say, on around about 10 to 20 hours a week. So I have time now to do the next part of my life, which is really supporting and helping women entrepreneurs, because I want to see women entrepreneurs get over that 6-figure mark and step into the empowerment and awesomeness of their life.
Yeah. And so tell us the name of the book and when it's coming out, because there's a book, right?
Yes, so I have written a book. It is the name of the book is called Money and Freedom. Oh. 7 keys, 7 figures for women entrepreneurs. And the book speaks a lot about money and freedom. And then it goes into the, 7 steps, 7 keys of what needs to be done in order to step into a very successful business. And I am pretty authentic in the book. I use a lot of personal stories and a lot of difficulties that have happened, and I'm very honest in the book. The book will be out in 2022, and I would love, if anyone's interested in it, just go to my website, which is lesliekuster.com, and there is a tab that says book, and you can just sign yourself up. And there is going to be a VIP book list, and there'll be some new things and early and able to buy the book as well.
Awesome. And in the meanwhile, before the book is out, what are you coaching? I think you mentioned you have a course. What are other ways?
Yes. So I do one-on-one consulting with women as well to help you really what these steps are to bring your business to the next level. I have a course called Keys to Success, which was a great success. I had 100 women in the course, and it just was wonderful and so great to support so many women. And you could find out about the book, about my consulting, and about the course by going to my website, lesliekuster.com. And also, when you go to my website and you just click, there's a little pink button there, and it will take you to my free video. So I have a free video, and the video is called 3 Things to Do Before 9 a.m. to Make 7 Figures. So definitely go and check out the free video.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you just radiate this presence and joy. And I think that's super contagious. So I think people should go check that out. So I have 3 questions before we wrap up. Super quick questions and almost sort of like rapid fire, like first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. So because the podcast is titled She Made It. And the philosophy sort of is, if she made it, I believe we all can too. And we're just giving people a glimpse into how someone's journey allowed them to get to a level of what we might call making it. So, Leslie, when was a time that you felt you would never make it?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to make it in my 40s and in my early 50s. I wasn't making it. I was working really hard, but I was far from making it. And I kind of was in that world for a long time. And then at one point when it was welling up that I felt like I was such a failure and that I knew I could do better. And that's when I decided, that's it, I'm going to change it. And I was just a normal entrepreneur, nothing special. I didn't go to business school. I didn't, all of these other things. And so honestly, and that's what I talk about in the book, really anyone can do this. It does not take intelligence or training or anything. It really starts with wanting it and wanting your life be elevated. That's really what's the most important, is just wanting it. Sincerely wanting it.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me a time when you felt you made it.
Yeah, I feel I made it now. So I kind of feel like I'm in the I made it stage. I'm very proud of the business I built. And I'm not only proud of the business I built, I'm proud of the lifestyle I have and the business I built. As I mentioned before, I'm able to run the business on 20 hours a week or less. My husband and I, bought our dream home. We're talking about, my husband just quit his job, actually. So I might be the sole provider going forward. And we decided maybe for the month of October, we're going to go and live on an island in Greece for the month. So
he's in the Princess Tower now. Yeah.
Now my husband's now going in the
He's in the Princess Tower. Exactly. Okay, so if you could think of one specific thing that you made, it doesn't have to be literal, like something tangible, but something you made that you're most proud of. And I kind of feel like you may have answered this, but is there any like one thing, like this is like the proudest, the thing I've made that I'm most proud of? Which you might have just answered that because you sort of said your life.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the way I've lived my life is I'm really proud of it because I've kept to my values of freedom and of staying connected to what's important to me, to spirituality, and at the same time have been able to build material that has been able to support that kind of life. And I believe anyone can do that. I believe any she really can do this. I know it, and I know it really starts here. This is really what goes on between our ears, and I know you talk about that to your clients, and it really does. It boils down to our mindset and what we think we can and can't do, and that's really our biggest enemy is that, and to understand that it's everybody's enemy and we're all in it together, and that life is hard sometimes, but we just keep going. And that I will also just say one of the keys to my success has definitely been perseverance. I mean, at the beginning of our talk today, I said I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. So this has not happened in 1 year or 2 years. It's been really a very slow growth for me. It's not like an overnight success. And I think this is another really important secret for women to understand, is that just the fact of persevering and staying in the game and not quitting actually brings you to a level of success that you didn't even realize you could have.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure, and so many great resources. And please go check out Leslie's work, Leslie's website. And thank you, Leslie, for sharing a little bit of yourself with us today.
My pleasure, Elle. Thank you so much.
I can't even believe we're at the end of 2021. Here we are in December, survived another COVID crazy year of unusual circumstances. And I just want to invite you to take the opportunity to go to lzimmerman.com and sign up for a free clarity call. A clarity call is a 1-hour free coaching time with me to really peel back the layers on, okay, what are the resistances? What are the things keeping you stuck? And which is really important this time of year as we start to evaluate the past year, the past 12 months, but really gear up for what's ahead in 2022. So it's a great time of year to take advantage of this opportunity, and I would just love to chat with you. Remember, lzimmerman.com, clarity call.